Motor City Soul Food has a new location at 14830 Telegraph in Redford with drive-thru and call-ahead service. Same delicious fried and baked chicken, barbecue ribs, fried and smothered pork chops, meatloaf, and more. The same macaroni and cheese, candied yams, dressing, black-eyed peas, and collard greens. Motor City Soul Food, now with 3 locations. Greenfield and 10 miles south of Starbucks, 7 Mile in Myers, and 14830 Telegraph across from Cartwright. Soul Food, #1 when it comes to taste.
Welcome to the Black Male Podcast. This is a space where we delve deep into the experiences, the challenges, and triumphs of black men in today's society. I'm your host, and each and every week we'll bring you inspiring stories, insightful discussions, and actionable advice tailored specifically for black men looking to navigate and excel in all facets of life. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's episode of the Black Male Podcast. Again, I'm Mike Sears, and as black males, you've seen us, so many of us at our worst. We have been on display in front of the entire world. It is my hope that this platform will also allow to the world to see black men at their best. Today's monologue, I want to jump right into it. It's simply about game plan. We all have to have a plan for whatever it is we want to accomplish in life. Even daily, it's good to have a plan. So I just want to read an excerpt from my book, Male Functioning. Get out of your own way and execute your dream life play. In order to execute your dream life, you got to have a plan. The game plan is a strategy each team in football puts together weekly. Players are expected to memorize game plays well before kickoff, with quarterbacks and defensive signal callers needing to master virtually every position's responsibility. The game plan has a lot of particular important parts and is extremely critical in the team's outcome in a game. Clock management is an important aspect of the game strategy. Film study is an important part as teams study their opponents weekly to create a game plan that will safeguard their chances of winning by exposing the other team's weakness and making it work to their benefit. You will not be successful at winning games on a professional level without an appropriate game plan that may vary from game to game depending on your opponent. Now, you need a game plan, and you must have a game plan. Most times you want Z, which is the end goal, but how will you get to that point? How will you get from point A to B before you get to your goal Z? You must have a game plan. Success should happen to you because you plan to be successful, not because of luck or chance alone. You need a spiritual game plan. You need a mental health game plan. You need a physical health game plan. You need a financial game plan. You should have a game plan for every area of your life. You may not know what to do to create a plan for every area of life, every area of your life, but there are people, experts, and information that you can research to help you get your game plan together. Your game plan should never be an option, but a necessity if you plan to win in every area of your life. Plan your work and work your plan for every day, every week, every month, every quarter, and every year of your life. Make sure you have a game plan. So, as we get into today's episode, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. His name is Mr. Chris G. He's done a lot of stuff. He's the CEO of C. Gertie and Associates LLC. He is a disabled Army veteran, a former paratrooper and medic. He's also a second-degree black belt. He's an entrepreneur, influencer, motivational, and public speaker. Without any further ado, I let him tell you the rest of his story as we get into who he is and what he does. Please welcome to the Black Male Podcast, Mr. Chris G.
Hey, brother. Hey, good evening, everyone. Mike, thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Man, I appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I believe in everything that you're saying. I want to piggyback on your topics. First of all, jumping back in real quick, C. Dirty and Associates was a company that I funded. I don't really want to say it was kind of by accident. What it was is at the time I was in the industry where I was helping people get funding for automobile loans, for personal loans, for real estate loans. And unfortunately, a lot of our people didn't have the education to know how to maintain their credit or how important their credit is in trying to obtain real estate or any kind of property of value. So we were falling into the gap where they were getting taken advantage of and falling into subprime loans where they were paying interest rates up to 29, 30% interest. And they were basically setting themselves up for failure from the beginning.
Yes, sir.
They didn't understand how to use the money that they had and what they had coming in towards investments and using their money to work for them. So that's what the company originally started off, and it kind of grew from there to a foundation where I want to be able to help the younger black children and a lot of our young adults figure out how to become financially free and start thinking about their financial future, because those are things that wasn't taught to a lot of us at a young age.
Right. And it's definitely not something that is highly visible or available in the classroom. Like, we get taught just about every other area of life. Some stuff is being excluded, like social aspects. However, financial literacy is not one of those things that's like a requirement prior to graduating high school.
Absolutely. There was a time, I don't know what your demographic is for a lot of your listeners, but I remember there was a time when I was in junior high school where they taught shop, or you had home economics, and there were certain aspects that they felt was fundamental that in today's society isn't beneficial for us. So the things that we should be learning in our school system should be finances, it should be investments, it should be
absolutely.
We had a platform not too long ago, a few months back, where it was called Create Your Own History. And we had a lot of educators that was in the crowd, and a lot of the problems that they were posing as far as the questions were, the curriculum that is being taught in the South is a curriculum of subservience. We're being taught to work for other people, whereas the other races are being taught to be leaders of industry. So we're already starting off behind the 8 ball, not even being equipped to be leaders. So we have to take our own accountability of our own children and educate ourselves instead of waiting for someone else to help educate us. Extremely
important. Yeah, you hitting us with a lot of good nuggets. Absolutely. Especially the education piece. It's as you stated, it's a system, and unless we operate outside the system with programs like what you have, as we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and just even educating us as black men and us raising our families, leaving the school systems to raise our children is not the way that we should be raising our children. They have a responsibility, but that first education, it should start at home. It should start at the household.
Absolutely.
There should be things that we're saying, hey, I know what they're saying at school, but I'm preparing you for something beyond just what they teaching you at school. And unfortunately, a lot of times the only education that a lot of our young people receive, it comes from the school system. So let me back up. It comes from what they're teaching in the school system as well as what they're seeing. So what they're visual, because we're visual learners. So what we see in our household, what we see in our environment, wherever we're growing up at, our neighborhood, and what we're seeing on TV and these video games. These are the things that are raising our kids, and we have to have a larger voice, a greater voice, a bigger voice to help guide them in the right direction. I know we jump right in, but I want to back up just a little bit. I know you talked about
yes, sir.
Being down south. So where are you exactly? Where you calling us from?
So I live in a little town called Ackworth. It is north of Atlanta. So you would have Atlanta, you would have Marietta, you would have Kennesaw, then Ackworth. So I'm in the suburbs, you would say, of Atlanta. I'm probably about 30 miles north of Atlanta.
Okay. And like you talked about growing up as well, where exactly were you born and raised?
So I'm born in St. Croix, in the United States Virgin Islands, born and raised. Started my journey in the Virgin Islands, went to school to pursue a career. At the time, I wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do in college, so I started off going to learn a trade. Yeah. I did structural steel fabrication, engineering. Left that, ended up going back home to the Virgin Islands. Times were really hard back then. It was hard to find jobs. Our economy is based off of tourism. Yeah. So, which is another issue that I'm trying to work on later on, because we have a need for something for our younger generation to do back at home when they graduate. You know, some of them don't want to go to college. Some of them want to get into the IT field, but we're not fostering that.
Absolutely.
So backtracking a little bit, ended up joining the military. As soon as I joined the military, it was combat after combat situation. As a paratrooper and a combat medic, I was responsible for jumping into combat zones, preserving life. There were times when you have to make a decision on who lives and who doesn't, because you can't save everybody. So these are part of the mental health aspects of what I'm trying to get covered. There's a lot of veterans that have come back from combat situations that have fallen back between the cracks. You know, there's not a system in place to help a lot of us. So coming from the Virgin Islands, coming to the States, going to war, living in Europe, it's given me an opportunity to be around a whole lot of different aspects of life, a lot of different demographics, a lot of different cultures. And it gives you a fonder appreciation for life when you've seen so much loss of it.
Definitely. And like you said, a lot of cultures. You've been on, different areas of the planet, if you would, overseas, being a part of the military. Can you talk a little bit more about your your business? You started off there, and I think it's key. But I want to know more about who it's targeted to help, as well as how long it's been in existence. You kind of gave us, how it happened, but like how, if people needed your services or needed your help, who would it best be available for?
So right now, I've geared myself more towards education versus actually providing the services. Like before, I was more of a conduit between the people who needed my help and the people that I knew that could help them. So I was putting them together, helping them get their package together, helping them get their paperwork together. Now it's more about educating them about how their credit works for them and how their money works for them. A lot of us in 2024 have the entrepreneurial spirit, but we don't have the means, whether it be educational or someone to guide us in how to make our money work for us. So when I look at most of the clients that I've had, their biggest struggle was mismanagement, misappropriation of their funds, and not understanding how to use their credit. A lot of us, unfortunately, think that a life insurance policy is like a lottery ticket. And that's not really what it's geared for, because I have a background in property and casualty, life and health, as far as insurance brokerage as well. And I've noticed that when it comes to that, we wait to die to see what our worth is. A lot of us believe that we are worth more dead than we are alive. So what your policies are designed, as far as with the education aspect, is, I'll use, for example, a term policy. If you have a 20-year term policy, your policy is designed for you to be able to take 20 years to get your finances in order, So when that time comes for you to pass on, you've had 20 years to stack your money.
Right.
Within that 20-year time frame, if you die before that happens, that's where that cushion comes in. But a lot of us, because we weren't educated on how to use that money to work for us, we didn't understand how annuities work. We didn't understand, how to use your investments to earn capital off of it. So my demographics was basically for the lower income people who didn't understand why their credit score was a 450 and what they needed to do to get their credit score up to an 800.
Right.
They were being taken advantage of by predatory lendings, where you had people that were telling them, well, hey, you pay me X amount of dollars and I'll fix your credit for you.
Right.
And the thing about it is you can fix your own credit. All you have to do is dispute what's on there and make arrangements. If you owe $10,000 to a particular person, if you make an arrangement with them and say, look, I don't have $10,000, but we can make an arrangement, say for $5,000, at that point, they've already written that money off as a tax loss. They've already sold that money to somebody else to start calling you as a debt collector.
Yep.
So any money that they receive over what they've already written off is just a bonus for them. So you can negotiate that, get it written off your credit. Tell them, look, if we negotiate the $10,000 down to $5,000 and you take it off my credit, I'll send this to you if you send it to me in writing.
Right.
So educating people on how to fix their own problems. Our biggest thing is they say that if you want to hide something from us, put it in a book, because we don't read.
Yeah.
We don't share information with each other. If you look at every other nationality, every other culture, they are designed to help each other thrive.
Right.
Because of our past and because of 400 years of enslavement, mental, physical, psychological, financial, we don't trust each other enough to share information with each other to continue to be prosperous and to get ahead.
Right.
So I'm trying to break down those barriers.
Man, that's whoo. You said a mouthful. Real quick, I want to make sure technically, are we broadcasting live? Are people able to see us? Okay. Man, wow. Education is key. I worked in education for about, and I'm still a part of education, but not in any particular school or school system. But education is key. And as you stated earlier, what we're being taught is mostly how to work for someone. But entrepreneurship is important. And as you're talking about our finances and being able to be educated about our finances and the troubles that we have concerning finances, a lot of it has to do with our mindset and what we're being taught and how our mind works. Like I was doing a little bit of research and studying on the mindset of an entrepreneur versus an employer. And although there are some similarities, those that have their own business, whether it's big business or small business, your preparation for a day is different. The way you think about money is different. Then your responsibilities are different. And I had a guest, actually a friend of mine, to talk one time about how much easier it is when you have a parent or someone in your household that if they are an entrepreneur as a young person, or you've grown up in a household like that, it's easier for you to latch on to seeing what that life is like for you to become an entrepreneur. But it's similar to that of a politician, a lawyer. What you see typically more times than not, it makes it more accessible for you to become. And so not only do we learn in terms of our education through what's being taught in the classroom, but it's also what's being caught, through our eye gates and our ear gates, the things that we're, again, hearing and seeing, whether it's in real life or, through the various medias that exist.
You actually said a mouthful on that, because it goes back even further than that to the foundation, as you stated. Mm-hmm. When you look at a lot of our households nowadays, there isn't a father that is visible in the household. There's no strong male role models. And I am the father of 4 sons. Mm-hmm. My oldest son, unfortunately, died in a car accident when he was 23 back in 2013. Wow. But I have a 20-year-old that's graduating college next year, and then I have 2 15-year-olds that are sophomores in high school, and they're all thriving. So I'm a firm believer that God does not entrust every person to raise a man. It takes a strong man to raise a king. We are in a time right now where our young people in general, and it doesn't matter what color they are,
Sure.
all of our young people right now are at risk.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who, God rest her soul, just committed suicide a few weeks ago at 17 years old.
Wow.
I can't fathom what could possibly be that intense at 17 years old. You haven't been around long enough to have those kind of issues, but obviously it's a problem.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're failing them. We're falling short because we should be the ones that they should be able to come to.
Yes.
Right now, social media, Facebook, and don't get me wrong, I am not bashing any of the social media platforms because I understand the importance of them because we all need them to relay the message.
Right.
It's how they're being used is what's important.
Right.
The image that they have our young queens nowadays is not an image that is something that's attainable or even something that is positive. They're body shaming themselves. I personally don't know who told everyone that we feel like all of the augmentations are necessary.
Sure.
I personally have never said I need anybody to go get anything augmented other than their mind.
Right.
We need to start working on what we have going on inside instead of being so focused on what we have going on externally. We have lost the sense of who we are, and we have no role models. We're looking at the reality shows, we're looking at the Instagram models. These are who our children are looking up to, and it's our responsibility to be their role models, not sit them down in front of the TV and ignore them. We have to put the time in and the work and be accountable to them.
Absolutely. And you said something that was key, and I was having this conversation with my wife and some other individuals as well, but the importance of not only the male being a part of their child's or their children's life. You know, that's critically important because we have a lot of males, unfortunately, that don't maintain that responsibility. They're not in their child's life at all. So the parent becomes the mother and other relatives, sometimes the older siblings, but not having that male, that father figure in their lives, one, that's critical in and of itself. But then taking it a step further, to not have or see that father daily in the household, that's a whole nother level of growth as well as exposure to what it is to see a man be a man. And a lot of times it doesn't necessarily mean seeing that man perfect, but just seeing and being around that type of, and again, I'm not speaking of toxic types of, okay, the man is around, well, at least he around, but he's toxic or showing and exposing the family to toxicity. But what I am saying is, the point that I'm making is, two-parent households, man being in the household, it's so far-fetched in today's day and age. And we look at all of the social ills and the different things, as you talked about, the media, you know, raising our kids and kids having a certain expectation based upon what they're seeing and what they're being told through the media, because they're not having that opportunity to hear it and see it in the household. It's critical. And I think is extremely important, again, for education. And this platform and nothing that you'll ever see me do has anything to do with bashing or putting down or talking about anybody. However, exposing it, educating people, making people more aware, the opportunity is to say, hey, I never thought about it like that. I need to be more intentional about how I make certain decisions in my life, knowing that if I bring another life in this world, man, that's an unselfish responsibility that I have to be willing to make in order for change to happen, and the right change, and in order to make sure that that life that I'm contributing to has a fighting chance on being its best and even better than my life. You know, extremely important. And Unfortunately, so many of us are just selfish. You know, we don't think about anything past today. But I think platforms like this have, you know, given individuals opportunity, you know, like you, like myself, to just discuss it and talk about it, and this be a part of the media that people have an opportunity to see. It's like, wow, man, I didn't know that about, you know, my credit and my finances, or I never thought about the importance of, you know, being in my child's life as well as being in the same house, you know. So just having the conversations and putting it in the atmosphere, I think it opens up the door and prompts an opportunity for significant change to happen, if not today, you know, in the near future.
Absolutely. I met a client once, and it's funny because as we were talking about the two-parent households, even if you don't have both of the parents in the household physically, like you said, at least having both of them present in the child's life
Absolutely
is critical. So
yes.
I had a situation that I was thinking of, and it ran back in my head, where I had a young lady that was coming in trying to get funding. Her grandmother came in with her and her son. And the grandmother sat outside of my office. I was having the conversation with the young lady about what she needed to do. She turned to her son, who looked like he had to have been probably about 5 or 6 years old at the time, and she said, "Hey, go and get your daddy out the car." So I'm thinking, well, great. Everybody can be involved in this. Everybody can get educated. Everybody can understand what's getting ready to happen with this financial transaction. And the young man goes outside and he comes back in with another young lady. But the young lady is dressed like a male. She's got her pants sagging. She's got the low haircut. She's got her hat turned backwards. So the young lady and the young man sit back now, and she says, yeah, go ahead and tell your daddy what it is that you was telling me. And it confused me why she was telling this little boy to call this young lady daddy. So I really didn't say anything because it wasn't my place.
Sure.
I went out, finished having an interaction with the grandmother, and the grandmother kept looking at me. She says, "You know, baby, I'm really disappointed in what's going on with our younger generation." And I'm like, "Well, Grandma, what do you mean?" And she says, "I didn't raise her that way, and I quite don't understand what's going on and what she's doing to that little boy." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean, what's she doing to the little boy?" She says, "Well, that little boy is so confused." She was like, every time he uses the bathroom, he sits down to urinate. Like, he sees everybody else. He's in a household with nothing but women. There is no male presence anywhere around. His father, I think, is in prison. The mom is pretty much given up on having a male in his life. So this little boy is starting off confused, not by choice, because he just doesn't know any better. And that's where we're failing. Even if you have a situation that is toxic and you can't get along, we have to understand that we came together with a greater purpose, and that these children are our generation. This is our future, and we have to break the generational curses, and we have to be able to communicate in order for them to have a future.
And the biggest thing about the situation that you're describing is understanding the effect that we make as adults, the effect that it has on not just the people around us and our future, but our children. Because like you said, they're watching us. And most times what they're not saying doesn't mean they're not seeing. And so we can't be so closed-minded to feel as if we can just kind of do whatever we want to do. And it's to null effect in terms of how or who is affected by it, not just in the immediate today, but long term. And again, I'm not here to judge or talk about, like you said, in the situation. You're there to help people, but when you're looking at the totality of what's happening, you understand, wow, you know, how do I reach this young man? You know, because he's going to continue to grow and at some point become a young adult, and his character, his life is totally going to be formed by his environment, as I talked about earlier, the things that he's being taught, the way that he's being taught. And it has a perpetual effect on not just him, but the generation coming after him. So my biggest thing about being an adult, being a man, being a black man, is making sure that the decisions that I make and even my influence, it has a positive effect on the next generation. Like, I have to be cognizant of who's coming behind me. I cannot be so selfish to just be chasing the bag for me, or to be looking for so many likes or popularity or all of these things that, nothing wrong with being liked. Who doesn't want to be liked? Nothing wrong with seeking money and wanting money and having money. For the Bible says money answers all things. So money is a necessity. We need it, obviously, but money cannot be the main thing. Money cannot be the motivation. Money cannot be the reason, the be all to end all why we make the decisions that we make. And when we're making decisions, we have to be aware of not only who it affects, but how it affects. So, real briefly, man, we barely even scratched the surface. There's so much more that I see that you've done, that I see that you've done. And I want to get into a little bit more of that, but briefly, I just want to take a brief break as we acknowledge today's sponsor. And right after we do that, we're going to come back and talk more with Chris G. Today's show is brought to you by Mike Sears Productions. Welcome to Mike Sears Productions, where every event is a masterpiece waiting to happen. Specializing in project management for live events and theater productions, we provide comprehensive support that covers all your technical needs, from lighting and sound to video and set design. Our team ensures every aspect of your production is perfect. Need advanced AV support? We've got you covered. With Mike Sears Productions, your vision is our mission. Visit us at MikeSearsProductions.com or check out our IG page, or simply call us at 313-422-3347. Learn more about our services and how we can make your next event unforgettable. Don't just put on a show, make it spectacular with Mike Sears Productions. Chris, I appreciate you. I appreciate the conversation, all that you're doing, and I can see your heart. Again, you're well traveled, and even you being here today shows a certain level of unselfishness. We've talked about, your program and how it got started and how it's put together to help. This is a little more on the personal side, but I was reading that you're a black belt. And you also teach martial arts?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us a little bit about that. I know we're pivoting slightly, but and
no worries.
I'm bringing that up because in everything that we're talking about, doing that requires a certain level of discipline. Requires a certain level of focus, requires a certain level of consistency. These are all things that just as well that's required in our communities, in our conversations, in our households. There has to be a certain level of discipline. There has to be a certain level of focus, intentionality. There also has to be a level of consistency. You don't just wake up, in the morning and say, you know what, I'm gonna be a black belt today, and you snap your fingers and poof, there it is. So can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in martial arts, how your journey to becoming a black belt, and then kind of what you're doing with that?
Absolutely. So I grew up on the island of St. Croix, and I didn't really have too many role models myself. Never knew my dad. He died of Agent Orange poisoning. He was a Vietnam veteran. So I spent a lot of time in the streets, and I spent a lot of time getting into fights in the street because I had to defend what was mine. And I never had anybody to teach me how to defend myself. So the irony of it is I used to watch Kung Fu theater on Saturdays and Sundays as a child.
Yeah.
And, we go outside and everybody wants to be Bruce Lee. So that sparked the initial interest. But through experiences through life and getting into altercations and wanting to preserve life gave me the passion to want to study it more. When I was in the military, being through a lot of combat situations, you've seen a lot of death, and it's a lot of a mental toll on you. So you need an outlet to be able to, I would say, regulate your emotions and deal with a lot of the things that come with PTSD.
Sure.
So for me, it was an outlet. I didn't want to think into what I was dealing with too much, so I put a lot of my focus into the physical aspects. I wanted to make sure that I had something in place that would help me deal with my mental awareness, help me deal with making sure that I was staying active. So I started training while I was in the military. When I got out the military, I started practicing a bunch of different types of martial arts because I wasn't quite sure which one was going to be the one that I was going to settle in. I wanted to fight in tournaments. So I started doing a little bit of Kali, Balintawak, and Eskrima, which the three of those are Filipino stick and knife fighting.
Wow.
And I went into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because most fights or most altercations end up on the ground at some point. So you have to be well-rounded. You can't just learn one martial art. You have to be able to know to deal with every kind of aspect. The biggest thing for me is, being that I'd seen so much death, I wanted to be able to teach people that they had options to be able to defend themselves that didn't cost life of life.
Wow, that's good.
Most people have a fear of confrontation, not necessarily because they're fearful of the situation. It's they're fearful of not being able to protect themselves. If you walk down the street and you see a few individuals hanging out in an alley, if you feel confident that you can defend yourself, you're not as prone to feel fear and act irrationally.
Sure.
So giving you an option, right now we have all of these young adults that are killing each other. They're taking life. They don't value life because they don't feel like there's any other way to resolve their conflicts. So it helps to teach conflict resolution as well.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. How long have you been involved in martial arts, and what was your journey to becoming? It is. You do have a black belt. Is that correct in terms of your?
I do. Actually, I'm working on my 3rd degree black belt here.
Wow.
I'll be testing in about less than a year for my 3rd degree black belt. I've been on this journey roughly about 20 years. I've been studying Choi Kwando as a head instructor for the last 10 years. Whenever you switch from one martial art to another, you have to start all over again. So you have to have the perseverance to be able to know, and the humility to start all over. So to become a black belt in one discipline and start all over again as a white belt, it takes a certain level of discipline to be able to know what needs to be done in a humble way of doing it. So it's a life journey. It's a way of life. All of my sons, I've taught martial arts. I have students as young as 6 years old. We have some students I think the oldest student we have right now is in her 70s. I think she's like 77.
Nice. Wow.
And staying active is key. Being able to have, know your self-worth, being able to know, your limitations, your ability.
Right.
It's a powerful tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that is just as important as education, we talked a lot, in the beginning of our conversation, and I think everything that we're saying can be somewhat educational, especially to someone who either didn't have our perspective as we're speaking, or maybe just some things you didn't think about, didn't know. But exposure is just as important as because it's a form of education. And a lot of times, like you stated earlier, what you were exposed to gave you certain things that shaped your character, shaped your thoughts, shaped some of the decisions that you've made as an adult because of, hey, this is what I'm exposed to. Now, if your exposure if you would have been limited in your exposure to just what you experienced in your neighborhood, just what you experienced by not having your dad around, then you would have maybe been limited to the things that you're doing now. But being able to go off to the military and learn that discipline, and to be overseas, and even the trauma that you experience with combat, and being a paramedic, and having to preserve and save life, and seeing death. All of those things, provided a certain level of exposure that gives you a different level of appreciation for all these things we're talking about. So when you talk about understanding our finances, and the lack of the discipline for what we need to do to correct our finances when they get in a bad way, or how to make our credit better. It came through, again, you're able to teach that because you learned something, and again, through exposure. Being able to, like you said, get a black belt in one area and then start all over. All of these things, and I'm saying this purposefully because I believe what's important for anybody, really, no matter how old you are, young or old, but especially our young people, exposure is extremely important. And being exposed to the right thing, because our kids are being exposed, fortunately, unfortunately, but a lot of the exposure is coming through media, formats, whether it's, again, being on that phone, being on social media, whether it's what they're seeing in movies, what they're listening to in their iPods, that's going in their ears. They're being exposed, but not necessarily exposed to things that help them in a positive way. I think it's not I'll say this, and then we'll move on. It was extremely important for me, growing up where I grew up, seeing everything that I saw, to get out of the hood. I was going to do one or two things. I was going to somebody's college or university, or I was going in some type of service. I had in my mind, where I was at wasn't enough. I wanted to be exposed to something different. My reasoning for going to college was the experience. Another E word, if we're staying with E's, education, exposure, just getting experience outside of what you already know. All of these things help aid us when we're pouring into a child, when we're trying to, even speaking to adults or young adults, trying to get them to see things differently and move differently, so we can have and create change, good change, positive change, within our own selves, but in our community. It's, we need education, we need good education, we need right education. We definitely have to be exposed, and we also need new experiences, because those things kind of break down a lot of the barriers, whether it's racial barriers, whether it's economical barriers, religious barriers. There are a lot of things that keep us separated and away from each other and apart from each other. And the reality is, and you can tell me if you agree with me or not, I want you to chime in, we need each other more than we don't. And a lot of times, even in relationships, we think, well, I don't need him, or I don't need her. Well, it's not a sense of needing as it pertains to, I'm not gonna make it without you, but we thrive better. We do more than just survive when we can do it together, as opposed to working in a silo, or working in a vacuum and trying to do it all by myself. Why should I have to, when you've already been where I'm trying to go? If we can just connect, if you're willing to share with me, if you're willing to take me by the hand and guide me, man, we can get there quicker. And not only that, now instead of you being by yourself, now it's two of us. And if I bring along somebody, now we got three, now we got four, and we build that type of community, we can do so much more than thinking, well, man, I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna try to keep it all to myself. And that's the way of life, or that's the way of living.
And you're absolutely right. It should be a collaboration of experiences. Things that we pass on to the younger generation should be knowledge that we have already taken that path, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that we made.
Right.
I don't know how many times I've probably been told something that I didn't listen to, but I promise you, if I could turn the clock back now, I would have made different decisions had
Sure.
I have had better role models in place to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So consistency is absolutely key as well. Like you said,
Yeah.
we have to be accountable to each other. We have to
Yeah.
do this together. We've been trying to do it by ourselves for so long, and it's not working.
Yeah.
There has to be that respect between the generations again. I think
Yeah.
the younger
Yeah.
generation wants the leadership, but they also want the respect that comes with it. And we have
Sure.
to stop being so afraid to engage with them and get
Right.
there on their level.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we can learn from, like you said, we can learn from each other. And being in education, I learned early on in my being a teacher, being an educator process, that not only am I not too old to learn, I can learn from anybody. Given
Right.
situation, I talked about this before, but I had a third grader who there was a problem with a tie. Now, the particular ties that they had, they were kind of like the snap-on ties. You pretty much, they was on like a string, and you clipped it on the back. And there was a particular child, his tie had come loose. And, my grown self, the way you tie a tie was, I know how to, do a single knot, a double knot, a wing knot, all these types of ties. But by it being on a string, he saw what I was doing, and he literally kind of popped my hand out the way and said, "No, Mr. Sears, do it like this." And like in 2 moves, boom, boom, the tie was done. And from that moment, it was like you talked about respect. There was a level of respect, but there was also a level of recognition for me to realize, you know what? Experience is just that. It's my experience. But my experience should never limit me to hearing or trying to understand where somebody else may be. Now, somebody showed him, and here he is. Again, I'm the teacher, so to speak, but he's teaching me. He's showing me, hey, there's a better way to do this. Now, what you're doing, you'll get there, and you'll obviously you'll get it done. But what he showed me was much simpler, and it was something that I could pass on to the next child without them being confused on this more elaborate process of something as simple as tying a tie. And so, like you talked about, that respect for not just the peers, but just having respect for each other, young, old, because giving it makes it a little bit easier for it to be reciprocated when people see, hey, I don't have to disrespect you because you're younger than me. I'm gonna give you respect. We're not equals, but there's no reason for me to disrespect you. The time has, I don't know where it's gone, and we barely, again, I said this before, we barely scratched the surface. We need to wrap things up, and I would love to, if you're available, for you to definitely come back. I would love to continue this conversation. I would love to be able to aid you in any way that I can with your respective programs and different things that you got to have going on. If I can promote it from my platforms, whatever I can do, I'm definitely here to support. I appreciate this conversation. I don't want it to stop, but because of time, we have to start wrapping things up. However, I do extend the invitation, and I would love to have you back again. I know that there's some other things that you're doing, some other individuals that you're involved with as well, and I definitely would love to be able to talk more about that, if that's okay.
I appreciate it, Mike, and I love to be a guest on your show again.
Sure.
Look forward to it, man. I love your show. Keep doing the great work.
Thank you so much. Before we go, I want to do what I try to do with all my guests, because sometimes we get, a little serious in our conversation, and when we're speaking on things that's serious, and it's important. It's important to us as black men, as black males, and to our community, and just people at large, people period. There's a human element. And speaking of that human element, I want to do these fun facts, and it's just you off the dome. I'm gonna ask you a few things, and you just answer accordingly, if you don't mind playing the game.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
So off the dome, do you have a favorite TV show right now?
Actually, I do. It's called Warrior. It's on Netflix.
Nice, nice. Do you sing in the shower?
And no, I do not sing in the shower.
Would you
I don't hold
rather?
a bad note.
Would you rather be too hot, or too cold?
I think I'll take too cold because you can always put on more clothes. If it's
Yeah.
too hot, there ain't really too much you can do to that if you ain't got no air conditioning.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you a morning person, night person?
Absolutely morning. Absolutely. I feel like the night is the death of a day. I'm more about life. I'm all about life.
Got it. Got it. Favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. Wow. You talking to somebody who's traumatized, man. I don't have a whole lot of those.
I understand.
I would say when I first learned how to swim, we have this cruise ship dock down there at the end of the island, and we have the sink or swim theory. You get pushed off, and if you make it back up, you know how to swim.
Wow. So you had that experience.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a light flash before your eyes experience. So, yeah, that was most memorable.
Cool. Last question. Do you have any hidden talent? We talked about a lot of the things that you do, but is there anything that people just don't know about you? It's hidden.
I don't know, man. I've been called the Renaissance man. A lot of my close friends know that I cook, but people who just know me in random have no idea that I'm really a good chef.
That's what's up. That's what's up. That's it. And I appreciate you saying that. Black men do cook. Men, period. And
Absolutely.
that's that's not, again, that's another thing that can be somewhat now, again, I talked about, but you don't see men cooking. And yeah, that's cool. Man, listen, I got a lot more that I could say, but we're out of time. And I've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed, getting to know you. And we're going to definitely do this again. Before you
Absolutely.
go, that's definitely. Before you go, can you please tell the people how they can get in contact with you, how they can stay in contact with you? And again, outside of this conversation that we're having, maybe somebody needs your help or they just want to keep the conversation going. How can people reach out to you?
They can find me on Facebook at Chris Gertie, or they can find me at Chris Gertie Choi Kwan Do. Doing a lot of my venues through motivational speaking, seminars. So our whole goal is to get out there and break generational curses and bring people some kind of freedom, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Absolutely.
And they can also reach out to me through my manager, Lady LaDonna.
Absolutely.
Through Bridgepoint Media. She's a great manager. She takes care of all of my needs.
That's great. That's great. I'm going to try to make sure I get this information, and I'll post it on my social media platforms and stuff as well, just so people can follow up and they'll have a tangible place where they can find that information and reach out to you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you for being here. And we look forward to doing this again.
Yes, sir.
Bless you, sir. Hey, before we get out of here, we know we cannot leave without Mike's moments of motivation. Today, I simply want to say these 3 words. You got this. One more time. You got this. Hey, life can it can throw us some cold curveballs, but remember this. You've got the power to hit them out of the park. Every challenge that you face is an opportunity to grow, learn, and become stronger. Think about all the times you've overcome obstacles in the past. You did it then, and you can do it now. Believe in your abilities, trust in your instincts, and keep pushing forward. Success is not about never failing. It's about rising every time you fall. So take a deep breath, focus on your goals, and take that next step. You got this. Believe it, own it, and make it happen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Black Male Podcast. We hope today's stories, discussions have inspired you. Remember, our journey together doesn't end here. Stay connected. Connect with me on Facebook and IG at the Black Male Podcast. YouTube is still coming soon. Let's keep the conversations going and let's keep each other uplifted. Remember, once again, I'm Mike Sears. This is the Black Male Podcast. And don't forget, before you go back, fade to black. Peace.